All right, let's talk about one of the most legendary, most feared machines of World War II, the German Tiger I tank. On the battlefield, it was this symbol of absolute power, a masterpiece of engineering, and honestly, a source of pure terror for anyone who had to face it. But here's the big question. Was it also a colossal mistake?
I mean, listen to that. That's a description of tank ace Michael Whitman's attack at Villers-Bocage, and it perfectly captures the fear, the tiger phobia, that gripped Allied troops. Just the idea that a tiger might be on the battlefield could change the entire dynamic of a fight.
And, that legend, it wasn't just hype. The Tiger Eye was, for its time, a truly incredible design. And it was all built around two key features that made it so darn terrifying. First up, you have to talk about its weapon. That 8.8-centimeter gun was an engineering marvel. It had this incredibly flat trajectory and a super high muzzle velocity. That's just the speed the shell leaves the barrel, which meant it could knock out Allied tanks from over a kilometer away. And at that range, their return fire was completely useless.
And then there was the armor. We're talking a solid 100 millimeters of high-quality steel right on the front. So it could just confidently drive towards the enemy, head-on, shrugging off hits that would have ripped right through other, lesser tanks. It really was a rolling fortress.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting, because the Tiger's amazing battlefield performance, that's only half the story. The other half is a story of, well, staggering inefficiency, logistical nightmares, and a total misunderstanding of the war Germany was actually in. And the first crack in this myth, it doesn't even show up on the battlefield. It shows up on the factory floor. The problem starts with just how ridiculously expensive it was to build. So, a single Tiger Eye cost around 300,000 Reichsmarks. Now, to put that into perspective, that wasn't just expensive. That made the Tiger one of the costliest land weapons Germany built during the entire war. And this is where you start to see the real problem, what we call the opportunity cost. I mean, look at this. A single Tiger cost more than 2 Panzer IVs, and the Panzer IV was the workhorse of the German army. And it cost almost 4 times as much as a Stug III assault gun. So right there, that's the crucial trade-off. For every single Tiger that rolled off the assembly line, Germany could have had 3, maybe even 4 other highly effective armored vehicles instead. And that choice, it had massive, massive strategic consequences. And believe me, the problems did not stop at the factory door. Once the Tiger got to the front lines, its sheer size and its incredible complexity became a crippling weakness. I mean, just think about it. The tank weighed an immense 57 tons. That created this cascade of logistical problems. It was too heavy for most bridges in Europe, it drank fuel at an absolutely alarming rate, and if it broke down, trying to recover one was a monumental operation that often took multiple heavy recovery vehicles. This complexity was just a total nightmare for the crews. Just to move a Tiger by train was this multi-hour ordeal. You had to take off the wide combat tracks, then take off the outer road wheels, then put on these narrow transport tracks. All of that just to get it to fit on a single rail car. And what does all this complexity lead to? Abysmal reliability. The numbers here are pretty damning. On average, only about 40% of Tigers were actually ready for combat at any given moment. The rest, they were stuck in workshops waiting for spare parts or major repairs. So while the Tiger was the big propaganda star, getting all the attention in the newsreels, there was another, much less glamorous vehicle that was proving to be Germany's most brutally effective tank killer. Say hello to the Stug III. It's squat, it's kind of ugly, and it was basically invisible in all the propaganda films. But you could argue this was the most important armored vehicle in the entire German arsenal. It was simple, it used a chassis they already knew worked well, and it was perfect for the kind of defensive ambushes that started to define the war on the Eastern Front. And when you just look at the raw numbers, the Stug's strategic value, it becomes undeniable. Germany built over 10,000 of them, and get this, by the spring of '44, Stug crews had claimed something like 20,000 enemy tank kills. That's more than the Tiger and the much-hyped Panther tank combined. So let's put the Tiger's production into its final, really stark context. Over 2 years, from the middle of 1942 to the middle of 1944, Germany managed to build exactly 1,347 Tiger I tanks.
And in that same war, they were facing an absolute industrial tidal wave of over 80,000 Soviet T-34s and American M4 Shermans. The math just wasn't on their side. And that brings us to the ultimate question about Germany's whole wartime strategy, right? Were they building weapons to win individual battles, or were they building weapons to win an entire war? Because those, as it turns out, are two very, very different things. So what's the final verdict here? Well, it's pretty clear. The Tiger was a weapon that was fundamentally mismatched to the kind of war Germany found itself fighting from 1943 onwards. It was designed to be an offensive sledgehammer, a breakthrough weapon for a war of conquest. But it ended up being deployed in a defensive war of survival, a war where what really mattered wasn't the power of a single machine, but numbers, reliability, and efficient logistics. So why does the legend live on today? Well, it was fueled by Hitler's personal obsession with these massive, spectacle wonder weapons. And it was fueled by a propaganda machine that desperately needed a symbol of technological superiority to boost morale back home, even as the war was being lost. The Tiger just looked unstoppable on a newsreel. Which really leaves us with one last provocative thought to chew on. Did the very real fear and the psychological impact it had on the battlefield actually justify the immense resources it consumed? Or was the Tiger Eye simply Germany's most expensive, most impressive, strategic mistake?